Hello everybody, and welcome back to What's Been Playing, the show where we put a spotlight on select video games and answer that lifelong question of, what is really worth playing? As the way things are right now, I assume that you guys are seeing this from my brand new dorm room, if you couldn't tell in the change of lighting already. That's right, it's that time again, and hey, it's definitely a much nicer living space than it was last year. And personally, I was hoping to get all the videos out before I left, but unfortunately it seems that it didn't really work out. But hey, 4 out of 5 videos is not that bad within the span of a month, especially with someone like me, who really only works on projects when I have the time for them. But I think it's about time that we bring the Super Mario Bros. Marathon to a close. Super Mario World, the premier Mario adventure on the Super Nintendo.
I'll be honest, out of all the 2D Mario games, this is the one that I have the least experience with. I actually finished it for the first time when recording this episode, but that doesn't mean it's bad. Not at all. In fact, we have another game that is highly considered to be the best for the system it's on, so this game, like the last one, is kinda a big deal. Like the game before it, Super Mario World took a lot of strides to push the series forward and alter what we expect from Mario games, as well as introducing a lot of major ideas for the series moving forward. Also, just as a quick heads up, I will also be taking a small look at Super Mario AllStars for this review. I think it's fair to give it at least a small glance, since there is enough to at least have a small discussion over it.
Well, without further ado, let's head to our final stop and see how Mario got his start in the 16-bit generation. Let's take a look at Super Mario World.
After the phenomenal success of Super Mario Bros. 3, Mario was kind of on top of the world. He was essentially the face of gaming at this point, and still continues to be. A trilogy of 3 amazing platformers on the NES. That is if you live outside of Japan. But with the turn of the new decade came some new competition that tried to steal some spotlight from the big N. With Sega finally making their rounds with the newly released Sega Genesis, Nintendo finally had a rival that could contend with the popularity of the NES. Much larger games, better graphics, it kinda made the puny 8-bit NES look pretty wimpy in comparison. In America's case, even Sonic the Hedgehog hit this scene to truly give gamers a reason to flock to the Genesis. Times were changing, the technology was getting greater, and it was time to upgrade. Well, Nintendo wasn't going to sit idly by because not long after, Nintendo gave their answer to the rising popularity of the Genesis with their own 16-bit console, the Super Nintendo Entertainment System.
It's like nothing you've ever faced. Now you're playing with power, superpower.
Bigger games, amazing graphics, and a library of some of the most iconic games of all time. And among the few launch titles to grace the system, one of them was Super Mario World. The thought of creating a sequel to SMB3 sounded like quite a Herculean task. It definitely wouldn't be easy to create a sequel that could top the amazing level of quality 3 had. But leave it to Nintendo to top themselves, even when it seemed like things couldn't get any better. Though this game may not have a 4 at the end of its title, Super Mario World is considered to be one of the best 2D Mario games of all time, as well as one of the best Mario games of all time. A bigger world, better controls, graphics, mechanics, music, I could go on. You had yourselves one of the best Mario games of all time as a launch title for arguably one of the best Nintendo consoles of all time. Wow.
Yeah, Super Mario World was up there with Super Mario Bros. 3 as one of the best 2D platformers of all time, at the time of its release, of course. This game really didn't fuck around. As it seems, we have ourselves another 2D Mario platformer. So, let's see how this one stands out from Super Mario Bros. 3.
Well, we have ourselves the usual Mario shindig, of course. While traveling to Dinosaur Island to get away from it all, Princess Peach is, of course, kidnapped again by the hands of Bowser. And as Mario and Luigi, if you're playing the 2-player mode, which functions the same as last time, travel across the island, defeat the Koopalings stationed in every fortress, and show Koopa who's boss once again. At first glance, even with this new coat of paint, it's definitely Mario. You have everything that you would expect from a Mario game at this point, so easing yourself into this one is pretty easy. Of course, since we're on newer hardware, we have some more detailed environments, more fluid sprite animations, actual backgrounds to levels, which is nice, and higher quality music. Each and every level you visit takes full advantage of the capabilities of the system, and only makes the transition from 8-bit to 16-bit more stunning. This game, to this day, still looks absolutely fantastic, and it's one hell of a game to look at. Whether traveling through grasslands, foreboding fortresses, maze-like ghost houses, or any of the other environments you'll come across, each detail is emphasized to perfection and oozes that Mario charm. I know I usually go over this later, but the music is absolutely up there too. Thanks to the advanced sound qualities of the Super Nintendo, we have some great themes to tap your foot to or hum during play, especially the Overworld and Athletic theme, the latter of the two being one of my favorite songs in the entire franchise, period. Graphics and presentation aside, since we are on the Super Nintendo, that means we have ourselves a new controller as well as some new buttons. Thanks to this, Mario has a few more moves to play around with this time to give you a hand. While Mario of course has his normal jump, pressing the A button allows Mario to do a spin jump, which allows you to break these blocks with eyes on them, as well as bounce across enemies that you would have otherwise died if you jumped on them normally. This is something I didn't use too much, but pressing the L and R buttons allow you to pan the camera, which can be pretty neat if you're the more speedy kind of players, because you can see what's ahead. But I'd never really found a ton of use for it if I'm being honest. And of course, Mario's old tricks from the past few games return, including 3's ability of holding shells, which can now be thrown upward, thank God, as well as being able to slide, which I accidentally forgot to mention was a thing you can do last time. I also wanted to mention that controlling Mario himself in this game is easily one of the most satisfying out of any of the 2D games. This kind of shit makes me swoon. Mario feels as smooth as butter here, with jumps feeling like they have a perfect level of momentum to them, as well as a good amount of floatiness. Those rare instances where I might have overshot a jump in 3, completely gone. Controlling Mario just feels so natural, and it leaves for so much opportunity to pull off some crazy stuff here, and I am all for it. It's something that you have to feel for yourself, but oh man, this feels good. Located at the top of your screen is your HUD, featuring all the same info as last time, minus a few details which we'll get into later. But most notably, you have the square in the middle of your HUD. This acts as a backup item for you to use. If you collect an item that replaces the current one you have, or a mushroom when you already have one, it'll get stored in that box for you to use later. By pressing the select button, the item will fall from the top of the screen for you to collect, or if you are reverted to Small Mario, it'll happen automatically. It's pretty nifty, and it definitely saved my ass when it counted, but it always sucks when you have something like a fire flower in there and get it replaced by a mushroom. Unfortunately, fans of the power-ups in Super Mario Bros. 3 will be a little disappointed because none of the unique power-ups make a return here. Of course, all the classic ones make a return here with a few changes like fireballs turning enemies into coins upon impact and the star lasting longer, but the Tanuki suit, frog suit, as well as all the other cool power-ups are gone. It's definitely a bit of a bummer, that's for sure, but what we get in return is probably one of the best power-ups in Mario history. The Cape Feather. Finding the feather will turn Mario into, well, Cape Mario. Think of it as the replacement for the Tanuki suit, but cranked up by a fuck ton. This thing is fucking awesome! By gathering up enough speed, Mario will begin to soar high into the air. Then, by pressing back and forth on the D-pad, which for the longest time I could never figure out, you can essentially make Mario fly in the air. I'm not kidding, folks. This ability just takes the cartridge and just... This ability is so unbelievably broken, and if you can imagine, essentially allows you to skip huge chunks or even entire levels. It feels so cheap, but I can't deny that this feels so good. Of course, there is a rhythm to keeping yourself in the air, but once you pull it off, oh man. Additionally, Mario is able to spin the cape, which functions just like swiping your tail in 3 if you had the Tanuki suit, so that's neat. Mario can also of course glide in the air, which can be useful for timing jumps. By diving straight down from the air, Mario will headbutt the ground, which essentially acts as a screen nuke to any enemy on the screen. Along with the Cape Feather, we also have what's probably the game's defining feature, Yoshi. Yes, this is where the lovable green dinosaur made his debut. Makes sense since this is Dinosaur Island after all. Here's a little fun fact for you. Yoshi was actually considered for Super Mario Bros. For quite a long time now, but unfortunately due to technical limitations, it never saw the light of day. But this time, Yoshi was finally able to make his appearance. After finding him at the beginning of the game who wishes to free his friends from the evil clutches of Bowser, you can find Yoshi eggs hiding in certain blocks. Yoshi will then hatch out of an egg, allowing you to ride on his back, which admittedly seems kinda painful given Yoshi's size. While of course providing you an extra hit, Yoshi is able to use his tongue to eat pretty much any enemy or certain objects and either swallow them or spit them out at enemies. Think of a Kirby before copy abilities were a thing. While also having a better jump, you are also able to dismount Yoshi, which results in a pretty hefty super jump, but it's pretty dickish all things considered. Depending on what Yoshi eats, he'll sometimes get different abilities that come with it. Take Koopa Shells for example, which depending on the color, give Yoshi some kind of random ability like spitting fire or temporary flight. Later during your adventure, you'll find differently colored Yoshi who have the potential to use multiple abilities with just one shell, which is pretty cool. It pretty much acts as a power-up in of itself. The best part is, you're able to take Yoshi to pretty much any level that isn't a ghost house or a fortress, something that was unfortunately removed in future titles. Yoshi is a fucking awesome addition to Super Mario World, and having him at your side makes any level a blast. Better yet, you can even find little baby Yoshis you can carry around, and if they eat enough stuff, grow into normal Yoshis. Freaking love these little guys. So even with the reduced number of power-ups, these two abilities definitely make up for it. But I can't deny the level of versatility that came with the abilities from 3. It would have been nice to have all the abilities in one package, but I guess it wasn't meant to be. Nonetheless, you'll be well equipped for the challenges that come ahead. I'll definitely say that the difficulty curve here feels much more natural than 3, and each world tests your platforming abilities on a steady curve. There's no cheap BS, just solid platforming challenges that make the most of Mario's moveset. It's great being familiar with the layouts and just zipping past everything in your way. Unless it's one of those auto-scrolling levels. Dinosaur Land is filled with tons of unique challenges to test your skills. As with Super Mario Bros. 3, each section of the island has its own theme and usually has challenges revolving around it, like Yoshi's Island being standard Mario fare to ease you in, or Vanilla Dome being completely underground. What's probably the most annoying one is the Forest of Illusion, which is pretty maze-like in of itself and requires finding secret exits, which we'll get to later. Since worlds are radically different in terms of theming, you won't really know what you're going to come across in each level, which is good for keeping players on their toes. And by the way, almost all the worlds here are named after food, which kinda sucks because now I'm just hungry. Along with all the previously mentioned ghost houses, which are like labyrinths in terms of design, there are also the returning fortresses, which are out for blood this time around. I mean, look at these obstacles. They want you fucking dead here. Some of the traps also like to ignore invincibility frames, so that's kind of fun. All of these levels are obviously accessed via the map screen returning from Super Mario Bros. 3. While things like the Toad houses are gone, you still have a set path for you to follow, but it won't be long before you find yourself able to take multiple paths. More on that later as well. All the enemies in this game are things you've been used to in the past. We do have ourselves new ones like Wigglers, Swoopers, and Chargin' Chucks, who would make any game night a blast as he seems to be able to play any sport he can think of. We also have new variations like Big Boos and Bonsai Bills. Jesus Christ! None of them should give you too much trouble, and there aren't any instances of bad enemy placement for the most part. Of course, we also have ourselves some bosses to tackle. Returning from Super Mario Bros. 3, we have the Kooplings to stop, and they definitely are tackling this whole revenge thing in an interesting way, because defeating them this time is even easier than last time. It won't be long until you notice that certain bosses repeat tactics used by other ones, and their patterns are usually extremely easy to predict. Definitely a bit of a disappointing downfall from last time. We also have Reznor, an army of 4 Triceratops who try to shoot you from the spinning wheel. They won't give you too much trouble either though, just bop the platforms they're standing on and they're toast. With the cards at the end of each stage gone, Mario will instead be reaching these 2 large poles at the end of the stage. If you're able to hit the moving bar that moves vertically on the pole, you'll be able to earn some bonus points towards these bonus minigames to net you some extra lives. Many stages in this game, however, have more than one exit. On the map screen, levels are separated by either yellow dots or red dots. Yellow dots mean that the level only has a single exit, while red dots mean that the level features a secret exit to find. Secret exits can be accessed by finding that level's key and bringing it to the floating keyhole positioned randomly in the stage. Some are easy to find, but some may require a bit more thought to locate. Finding the secret exit either takes you to separate levels, a warp pipe, as well as switch palaces, which allow you to press this button to turn all the dotted blocks of that button's color into solid ones. This usually opens opportunities to reach new paths or even find some other secret exits. Some stages also completely change the route you're taking you to completely different areas of the island, which is honestly pretty neat. I really like that detail. There's also the entrances to Star Road. Not only can you use these entrances to warp to different parts of the map, but it houses itself a collection of slightly more challenging levels. Beating all of the levels in Star Road will then allow you to enter the Special Zone, harder levels that put your skills with the game's controls and mechanics to the ultimate test. Though initially, it's not easy to tell that these stages are some of the hardest yet from their names. Gnarly? Tubular? Awesome? Mondo? I would hate to see a modern take on this idea. Lit? Fire? Fax? Slade? Ugh. These stages definitely don't fuck around. Each one will put your platforming skills to the test, not pulling any punches. Whether with difficult platforming or instances like in Tubular, where you have to carefully guide Mario across the stage using the P-Balloon and these stupid ass Chargin' Chucks, don't make it easy. But once you clear the last one, you're not only deemed a super player, but the entire island gets a fall makeover, as well as some of the enemies too. Jack-o'-lanterns instead of piranha plants and... What the fuck? While I think that the idea of secret exits are cool, I can't deny that it definitely felt like a chore to find them sometimes, but only slightly. In Mario games, I usually like to just keep moving, so it kind of takes me out of the experience when I need to stop and look for something. But it's not a huge deal. But after making your way through all the challenges laid out before you, you finally reach the Valley of Bowser, the final world that stands in your way between you and Bowser. After making your way through each of the levels or by finding the exit right here and entering through the back door of the castle. Really? A back door that skips a pretty nice chunk of the final level? Let's put him up there with Wart as Dipshit of the Year, ladies and gentlemen. Well, anyways, you eventually meet Bowser, riding his infamous clown copter. After dodging the oversized cannonballs and throwing enough Mecha Koopas at him, you finally deliver the coup de grace and rescue Peach. Cue some fireworks and one of the best credit themes of all time, and the day is saved once again.
Wow, wow. That was one hell of an adventure. It really pisses me the fuck off why I didn't finish this game until now. Super Mario World has so many amazing levels and mechanics that it's really hard for it to make you not feel satisfied when the adventure comes to an end.
Super Mario World somehow did the unthinkable and toppled Super Mario Bros. 3, a game thought that at its release was the best game of all time. While opinions between the two vary, I have to say that World was definitely the more satisfying experience. Yeah, the pool of power-ups is smaller, the bosses are kinda easy, and some of the secret exits can be a pain to find, but you have so many amazing things to look forward to that it doesn't even matter. Levels that make great use of not only the capabilities of the system, but the capabilities of the new and improved Mario beautifully, mechanics that are fun and easy to master, a great difficulty curve, and just amazing as hell level design. The list goes on and on. It's a kind of game that just makes you happy. You can't help but feel good playing this game. Even as a launch title, this game is impressive as hell and was a great introduction to what the system would be capable of later down the line. Not to mention, an absolutely fantastic score just heightens the entire experience by a ton. Nintendo was threatened by the sense of speed that came from Sonic the Hedgehog, as well as the blast processing of the Genesis, but Nintendo struck right back and arguably even harder with the Super Nintendo, creating one of the biggest rivalries in the 90s. Put everything in this game together and you have yourself easily the best 2D Mario game of all time. I only recently beat it, but yeah, that's how I feel. I don't think that any other game aside from 3 can rival the sheer level of quality this game has. This is one that any fan of platformers should absolutely play. Easily one of the best games of the 16-bit generation.
And what a hell of a note to end on. This game was a constant adrenaline rush from beginning to end. Nintendo really went all out on this one. The Super Mario Bros. Series was such a joy to look at. Yeah, the Lost Levels was, well, the Lost Levels, but Super Mario Bros. 1 through 3 as well as World have so much to offer that you would really be doing a disservice by not at least trying them out. In a time where the art of making video games was still rather young, the Big N came along to show everyone that these are how you make video games. However, we are not entirely done yet. In today's world, there are so many different gaming compilations when it comes to Atari, Nintendo, Sega. Any kind of company you can think of, there's probably a game compilation for it. Well, our title that we're going to be taking a quick look at, Super Mario AllStars, you could say it's the grandfather of classic game compilations.
In 1993, Nintendo released Super Mario All-Stars for the Super Nintendo, a compilation featuring Mario Bros. 1 through 3 as well as the Lost Levels, which was the first time players outside of Japan were able to play that game. What we essentially have here are 16-bit versions of each game, featuring improved controls, graphics, music, as well as a save feature which is much appreciated. Each one feels exactly like they did in their 8-bit counterpart, aside from small instances of that improved control, so there won't be anything new to expect. This is hands down the definitive way to play these games, thanks to not only the new save feature, but the enhanced graphics and music that breathe new life into these games, making them look and sound absolutely gorgeous. Eventually, this game was re-released with Super Mario World included, serving as the ultimate 2D Mario package. The game was also eventually re-released on the Wii as celebration of Mario's 25th anniversary, featuring the original game as well as some extras. Other than that, there's not much to say. What you have here is a solid package of some of the best 2D platformers out there. While the OG NES version still has its merits, if you're interested in giving any of these games a try, this is the way to go if possible. A much more accessible as well as graphically and musically impressive versions of these classics all in one cartridge.
And now, for real, we are done with the Super Mario Bros. Series. I already gave my thoughts on the series, of course, but you know, after playing through all these games, it's kinda sad that we've reached the end of the marathon. But unfortunately, it is time to move on. And a quick side note, I do plan on taking a small break after this episode. I do plan on uploading at least something in the month of September, but with a particular spooky month coming around, I have something kind of big planned. And I'm going to use September as a chance to not only get myself acclimated with school and whatnot, because that's going to take up a good amount of my time, I'm also going to be trying to work on that in the background, assuming that I fully get around to it. I don't want to make any promises, you know. But with that, thank you guys so much for joining me with this marathon. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.